Those that are out there on Facebook, YouTube, glad to see you, hear you. Well, you'll see me, I guess. Okay. Let's turn in our Bibles, if we would, to Genesis chapter 1 and starting at verse 20 there. And while you're finding Genesis 1, shouldn't take you all that long. That's where we've been for a while, but yet, I don't know, my Bible always goes about 15, 20 chapters past that. I get back to chapter 1, takes me some time sometimes. So I wanted to tell you a couple of things here this morning to lighten your heart a little bit. How about, I just love the way the earth rotates. It really makes my day. Just think how deep the ocean would be if sponges didn't live there. I like this one. Smoking will kill you, bacon will kill you, but smoking bacon will cure it. Hey, there's actually some laughs there. All right, good deal. Probably some groans out in Facebook land, so okay. Well, thank you for your understanding last week. Kind of worked out one of those situations, as the Bible talks about, when you have the ox in the ditch. We had a daughter at the airport, so she was stuck there last week, flying in. The storms that came through on Saturday, it was Saturday into Sunday there, all the storms that were coming through. Because she was supposed to be home Saturday, and then the storms rolled through Pittsburgh, went through Philadelphia, kind of just messed the whole eastern coast up there. And so she was flying from Pensacola back to Reagan National in D.C., and they said to her, welcome to D.C. kind of thing, but really we can't help you right now. Good luck finding a way home. And we're just fortunate enough, it was about a 3.5 hour drive, so we told her we'll come down and get you. We called and got a hotel room for her so she could stay the night, and then we went to go pick her up, and then we were back here about, mid-afternoon or something like that. So it was just a whirlwind trip to D.C. and back. So, but to fly today is a fun experience sometimes. That's the first time she's ever had that kind of problem, but either way, made it. We got her home. So thank you for being understanding of that. So from the last time we were together, a couple weeks ago, we were talking about the days of creation, talking about what happened there. Day 1, we had the earth, we had light, we had day and night. On day 2, the firmament, the atmosphere there, which divided the earth from the heavens. And day 3, we talked about the dry land forming there. I think pushing up from under the water, all the waters receding back there enough to make for the dry land, and then separating the seas to where they were. The plants were made with the seeds that were able to produce more of the same kind of whatever that seed had in it there. And then day 4, we had the stars and the planets and the sun and the moon, and of course all those things there to help us to mark the time, the signs and the seasons. It is just amazing that the planets and the stars and everything are there, and I find it amazing that God has everything working exactly the way it is, and you'll see some of the news stories every once in a while with the different scientists, the different people who are watching things, that they watch the items that are flying past the earth. Oh, there's a big asteroid that's getting close to us, and it flies right by us, and we're just this little infinitesimal speck, this little planet that's in the middle of everything there. But you have these massive things moving through space, and I think God's keeping everything together just as He has it there for us. So, so as we consider here, we're going to move on to days 5 and 6, but let's take a moment to pray, and then we'll get into our lesson. Dear Lord, we are so thankful that you've been so good to us, has given us another day, Lord. We thank you for this another week that has passed, and Lord, for another Sunday that we can celebrate a risen Savior. We are so thankful, Lord, for the resurrection. We're so thankful for your Son, Jesus Christ, who came to die for our sins, Lord, to giving salvation so full and so free to those that are willing to accept it, Lord, those that are willing to put aside their own thoughts of how they get to heaven, and understanding that you have a plan of salvation through the person of Jesus Christ, and it's the faith we place in him and the grace that's provided through that act of faith that gives us salvation. I pray that you would just help what goes on here today to always be a furtherance of that, Lord, you would just help us as a people to understand more fully your word, and we ask you help us this day. We thank you for it in Jesus' name. Amen. So think about it as God gave the commands. He gave commands, and as he said, for this to happen, for that to happen, as we read there in the first 4 days there of creation, he gave that command, and it was immediately followed by the formation of whatever it was he spoke. That's just incredible to me. As much as we put effort into this, put effort into this life, and I say something in my home, and none of it ever happens. I'm sure that's not the way it is in your house, right? No, I'm joking. I have people that help me there so well and do so well, and so I really appreciate them. I really do. But God spoke it, and immediately the formation of what he said, it happened. And so his omnipotence is on display as he just spoke the entire universe into existence. I mean, just God wanted it to happen, so it happened. There was nothing that was going to stop it, nothing going to get in the way, and just shows his mighty power that way. So the most wonderful thing is I just mentioned about all these things that happened, the way they're tracking all these different meteors and different asteroids and different things going on, that he's continuing to sustain it. He's holding everything together. Every atom of being, every atom of our bodies, every atom of this earth, every atom of these buildings here. I mean, these atoms need to stay together. This roof's going to collapse on us. And he's sustaining, he put it in place, the physical laws of this world, put it in place so that it stays there. And he's sustaining it until he decides he's not going to sustain it anymore. And we could see that if we studied through Revelation, and how that this world will burn with a fervent heat. I believe God's going to say, I'm not holding things together anymore, and it's going to start coming apart. When it starts coming apart, then we're going to have some big things happen there. So hold your place in Genesis 1. Turn over to Hebrews real quick. Go over to Hebrews chapter 1. In verse 1 it says, God, who at sundry times and in divers manners spake in time past unto the fathers by the prophets, hath in these last days spoken unto us by his Son, whom he hath appointed heir of all things, by whom also he made the world. So Jesus Christ was there, telling us Jesus Christ being there at the creation. We've studied that. We believe that as Christians here. We believe the Bible talks about a three-part God, and Jesus was there with the creation. In verse 3, who being the brightness of his glory and the express image of his person, and upholding all things by the word of his power, when he had by himself purged our sins, sat down on the right hand of the majesty on high. Turn over to Colossians chapter 1. Again, holding your place there in Genesis. In Colossians chapter 1, verse 15, who is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of every creature. Again, talking about Jesus Christ. For by him were all things created, that are in heaven and that are in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created by him and for him, and he is before all things, and by him all things consist. So again, they're telling us that God is holding everything together. It's by his word that he's holding everything together. And again, I believe one day he's going to say, I'm not keeping it together anymore. Judgment is coming. That's what the Bible teaches. Judgment is coming. How exactly all that plays together with things coming apart, I don't know, but I truly just believe that the say the laws of physics there with the way atoms are held together, that it's going to be that's just going to be wiped out, taken out. That's just a personal belief of mine. I can be probably persuaded to believe otherwise, but certainly if you study how everything is held together, if you take, it's amazing, if you take the different things, you take sodium, and you take chloride, and you took either one of those and you ate it, you would die. But there's a chemical reaction that happens, they're put together, and everything changes about that particular compound there, and you pour it on your French fries, and boy, it just makes them nice and salty. Tastes really wonderful. But sodium chloride in the individual, do that. Take hydrogen. We all know about the Hindenburg, right? Oh, the humanity. They had a lightning strike or whatever happened there, caused that hydrogen to blow up. You take the oxygen. If you had pure oxygen, if you're on oxygen, you don't smoke cigarettes around that, right? Too many people blown up. Both of them highly, highly flammable. Get them together, boy, it's a nice cool drink of water. It's just the way they're put together. Things that are massively caustic, massively dangerous to us in their own state, they're put together in a way that it causes us to have the things of life we need, the water of this life, the salt of this life. That's what we need. But when they're taken apart, when those bonds are broken, they're taken apart, watch out. And so it's amazing how that God has that worked, how he has put it all together for our good and his glory. That's the way, even those two things, next time you take a drink of water, God has used that for your good and his glory. We should be drinking more water, right? We all should be drinking more water. Okay, there you go. So today we're going to look at days 5 and 6, where God created all the animals, and then he created man. And the one thing we have to understand, even though things created there close together like that and things happen that way, there is a great distinction between the two. As Christians, we need to understand that great distinction that is there. The world wants to teach us otherwise, and I'll talk more about that later, but there's a great distinction in the creation. So if we look at day 5, let's look at Genesis 1 and verse 20 there. And God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. And God created great whales and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, be fruitful, multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let fowl multiply in the earth. And the evening and the morning were the 5th day. So we see there all those things. We'll talk about all those things there in a moment. But just consider all the animals, all the creatures, all around this world created by that one spoken word there. Those animals that the huge whales, they appeared, they were formed, they were created, and it was in his word that he did that. So the sea creatures, the winged creatures, all those things created. Then on day 6 here we consider Genesis chapter 1, continuing verse 24. And God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beasts of the earth after his kind. And it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. And God blessed, and God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful, and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. And God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat. And it was so. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the 6th day. So, as we consider here, as we consider what we see through these two days of creation, that there were animals of the sea on the 5th day, and then the winged creatures were there, and then on day 6 we see the livestock, some good beef, good cattle roaming around. That's some good stuff there. everybody likes a good hamburger, don't they? It's always good to get a good steak or a good hamburger. Just really, I'm getting hungry again, Brother Bill. It just happens that way. I don't know. But then you get the creeping things and the beasts of the earth. And then, of course, we say there at the end, we see where he made humans, both male and female. We were sitting, there were a few people held over yesterday after the graduation party, and I thank everybody who was able to make it out to that, and just had a really great time of fellowship, and I trust, I hope everybody seemed to have a good time, and so that's what we wanted. We desired your presence, P-R-E-S-C-E-C-N-C-E, whatever, not your presence, P-R-E-S-C-E-N-T-S, but we wanted to have everybody there just for fellowship. Brother Sean made the comment, he said, this is just like a little church service together here, you know, and so, yeah, that's our family, you know. My parents were able to make it up, my sister and my nephew and all the families there, and some of Susanna's family was there, her mom, and that sort of thing, but you guys are the ones we spend the most time with, because they're at least, you know, most are 150 miles away, except for Helen down the road there, but either way, it was so good to have everybody out. But as we were finishing things up, and we were, I was a little too tired to get up and load stuff in the truck, so we were just sitting there chatting with who was left, and I'm sitting there on the bench of the table, and I wasn't quite sure. I felt something, and it was like little ticklish on my back there, and I was like, well, am I sweating down my back? I'm thinking I'm sweating, you know, like a little roll of sweat rolls down your back, you know, it tickles, and I'm thinking that's what was going on, and I stood up at one point. I went over to Susanna, I said, I think there's a bug on my back, and so she like lifted up back of my shirt and looked, and she couldn't see anything. Okay, well, okay, I'll go sit down. It must be something else, and so I sit down. Next thing, I'm feeling something else back there. It's like whatever it was. I don't think it was like sweat doesn't go up your back, so it was like I'm like, okay, something's going on here. So thinking about those little creepy things, one person was sitting there and said, well, there was a spider right there beside you. And spiders don't bother me, so I wasn't overly concerned. But I was like, well, no, this is on my back, not over there. I was thinking it was not a problem. And so I just reached back up on my back, and I push on your shirt. You know how you feel that bump under your shirt when you know there's, and so I just reached and went, and it went like that. It was, I'm like, okay, he's not going to bother me anymore. But I know that wigs some people out, but I'd rather have it squished in my shirt than have it crawling on my back. But those creepy things, how many billions and billions of bugs are there running around this place, you know? Everywhere we turn around, bugs all over the place. They say one of the best things to do is not make your bed in the morning, because when you pull those covers back up over the top, it's all those bugs that are living, not the big bugs, the wee little bugs. All those are living under your covers. You pull that covers back up, it's a nice, damp, warm area for them. Oh, just they get so snug as a bug in a rug. And they say you leave your covers off, then the light hits them, and all that, everything hits them, it kills them. So when I don't make my bed in the morning, I'm just killing bugs. So that's the way it works. I try to convince Susanna that way. Can't quite get there yet, but that's okay. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So as we consider these sea creatures, winged creatures, creeping things, the beasts of the field, all these things, so let's just look at a couple of things. So the winged fowls, when it talks about the winged fowl specifically, they're all different types of birds. There are people who are bird lovers, or they're not. I mean, there are people, you know, I myself love fried chicken. I mean, just really into that. But no, a lot of people just love the birds. Parrots, it's amazing to me. I heard a comedian one time say something about, imagine the first guy that, you know, had a parrot talk back to him. You know, thinking about how scary that would be to have a parrot. But minor birds, the ones that can kind of parrot too, you know, that they can make sounds, and they sound like somebody's voice talking, and all, they can learn all these words, and boy, it's amazing how smart they are that way. But you think about parrots, doves. I was driving home one day this week, and I drove by, and on the side of the road there was a dove, and he took off flying. I got down, there was another dove. He took off, got down, another dove. I was like, what are all these doves doing alongside the road? Why are they there? I don't know, but really they're kind of a majestic animal as well. The herons, you know, the different water birds like those that can do those things, the eagle, but even thinking like the sparrows, the Bible talks about the sparrow. God has his eye on the sparrow, and how much greater are you than they? Again, pointing back to what Genesis is telling us here, that a sparrow doesn't fall to the ground without God knowing about it, and yet how much greater are you than they? But the sparrows are there, the cardinals. So many in this room love cardinals. I know they're cardinals, beautiful, beautiful animal. The state bird of West Virginia, by the way. The state bird of West Virginia is the cardinal. The flower is rhododendron. And I think it's the black bear is a state animal, just so you know that. I don't know what's the state bird of Pennsylvania. The crow? The taxi bird or something, I don't know. Love the Carolina wrens. When we lived in South Carolina, that was the state bird of South Carolina. They're not a very, they're an unassuming bird. Like to build nests in places. You probably don't want them building nests with a small bird like that, but one time their license plate had the Carolina wren on the license plate. Flamingos. I learned that flamingos are mostly pink because of the type of shrimp they eat, and what's inside the shrimp makes them be more pink. If they don't get a lot of that, they'll actually be white. That's kind of interesting. So all of that is there, and then so what other flying creatures do you consider? What other flying creatures do you think of other than birds? What else do you think of? What's one comes to your mind? A bat. Yeah, don't like bats. Take the garbage up at the end, you know, every Monday night, and if I don't get out there soon enough, we've got a big light out there and there's bugs flying around it, and that bat's going around getting him a meal, and boy, it gets down close to the ground. As a kid, I don't know what it was. I just never liked being around bats. Maybe it's because of the two that got into the house, and we had to, you know, I've told you that story before. If you haven't heard it, I'll share it with you sometime. But just bats they're there. So again, a flying creature. There are others that we think are flying, like flying squirrels. They actually just glide, so they're not really a flying animal there. But just thinking about all those winged fowls that are out there and winged animals, the winged things that can fly. So again, here in this passage, we see repeated after their kind or after his kind. So it's repeated here in this creation account 10 times. Now, we've all heard preachers say that when God repeats something in his word, it's important to him, right? That doesn't mean what he doesn't repeat isn't important, but there are times where he repeats things, and we see something twice. We'll read something, particularly like in Proverbs or in the Psalms, we'll read something and we'll read it again, somewhere, you know, just a few chapters over, or a few, and they're like, wow, I just read that. Didn't I just read those words exactly like that? And you think about it, and God's repeating himself. And he's repeated that sometimes within the same psalm or within the same proverb. He's repeating himself. Well, the fact that he's repeated himself here 10 times in this account really should grab our attention. He seems to do it so we are clear on that meaning. Sometimes twice is enough to make his point. 10 times, to me, it just blows me away to think about it. Now, if we were to go to Genesis chapter 6, and I think for time's sake we won't go there, but you can do this. Genesis chapter 6, verse 20, it is just a couple pages over, but Noah is instructed to take 2 of every kind. Again, God chose Moses to pen down the book of Genesis, and so certainly it's Moses writing the words down, but I don't believe he wrote them down by accident. And Noah being instructed to take 2 of every kind. If we were to go to Genesis chapter 8, verses 17 and verse 19, after the flood, God commanded Noah to bring out every living thing in the ark, all the kinds, so that they could multiply and replenish the earth. They were to reproduce within the boundaries of their created kinds. There was nothing going on that was outside of that. There was nothing. It was what was there was brought out, and they reproduced on this earth. So, if we were to flip over now to Leviticus chapter 11, it's like, wow, we're into the law here, so that's kind of interesting. And what does that have to do with anything? So in Leviticus chapter 11, we look at verse 13. And these are they which which ye shall have an abomination among the fowls. They shall not be eaten, they are an abomination. The eagle and the ossifrage and the osprey and the vulture and the kite after his kind, every raven after his kind, and the owl and the nighthawk and the cuckoo and the hawk after his kind, and the little owl and the cormorant and the great owl and the swan and the pelican. Would not want to have a pelican. I just don't think that would be very good at all. They're such nasty creatures. But they serve their purpose, do they not? Pretty much kind of like the seagulls, the rats of the ocean. They'll just eat up anything. Yeah. The pelican and the gyre eagle and the stork, the heron after her kind, and the lapwing and the bat. Oh, there's that bat again. That's interesting. So we see that these are listed in there together. Those winged animals, those animals that fly, and in Leviticus, Moses is describing those unclean that they're not supposed to eat for the Israelites, because I'm sure everybody's seen the joke about why wasn't the Garden of Eden in Louisiana, and why wasn't Adam and Eve Cajun? Because they would have eaten the snake and left the fruit alone. That's a joke. Okay. But you get an animal out there. You like that one, Miss Kelly? Okay. Some of these places, they come up with animals and they say, let's eat them and see what they're like, Well, the Jewish people were given a strict idea of what they should and should not eat, and so there's this listing here of these flying animals they're not supposed to eat because they're unclean. And again, in this list, the bat is there at the end. Seems like it's out of place, but the law was describing the unclean, and the bat, as we've certainly learned, is unclean. So not anything I want to eat. So again, repeated several times here is the phrase "after his kind." It's here again, after his kind, repeated, after his kind. All through his word, God has put this after his kind. He's letting us know that these things don't just happen to change into something else, or that they come from something else. It's whatever was there originally. That's what it keeps reproducing. It just keeps going that direction. So we consider here going forward the sea creatures of day 5. All types of fish, crab, shrimp, octopus, squid, whales, dolphins. The Bible says they're the great whales and every living creature that moves in the water. Again, Genesis chapter 1, verses 20 and 21. And again, I think everybody's tried anything they find in the ocean that they pull out, unless it's just so ugly that somebody couldn't even imagine. People tried to eat it, have they not? I mean, if you consider too, shrimp are again the, what's the best term for them? They're the kind of like, almost like the carp of the ocean. I mean, they're just bottom feeders. They just love to swim around crawl around on the bottom there, cleaning up a lot of garbage down there, and probably not the best thing to be eaten, but shrimp fried up really nice is really good. And got a story about that too. Went fishing with some friends, went shrimping with some buddy of mine, his dad in South Carolina, and they wanted me to come with them every time because we were out there and we just filled up like 3 coolers full of shrimp. They'd never had such success, but they were happy I was along, I guess. But if you like all the fish stuff, I'm not. Shrimp, catfish, flounder, cod, I kind of like it all. That way I'll eat it broiled, but I like it fried. But most other, like crab legs, that's just too much of a fight to get the meat out of the crab legs, so I'll just leave all that to Susanna. She can have all that. And but it is amazing. People found stuff in the ocean, they try to cook it up, they try to eat it. That's just the way it goes. But God created all those that are there, and again, some of the sky. I don't believe we've even touched the hem of the garment of what's out there in the ocean. I just don't think we've seen in all of our days that we've seen every creature that's living in the ocean. There's so many, as the Bible teaches, and man finally figured out that there are mountains under the water that are higher than the mountains that are above the water. And so when you go down that deep, oh, well, people, things can't live down that deep. Yes, they do. There are the places where things live. I just don't think we've seen everything yet. And so it's just amazing, though, all those sea creatures created there. Everything is there. God created on day 5. And then when we go to the land animals of day 6, considering the cattle, like I say, the livestock, anything that we would, I'll say, domesticate and bring together in and have around us that way, those livestock, the creeping things, the beasts of the earth. Think about it, the deer, the antelope, the cows, the lizards, the alligators, the elephants, cats, dogs, and even, like I said, those insects, all those things. So every land-dwelling animal, from creeping things, creeping insects, to crawling snakes, which we all love, I'm sure, and all the way up to the largest of animals. So the extremely, extremely tiny, all the way to the truly gigantic, are there. And so the last thing God did in Genesis 1:26-28 there, is see on day 6, man's creation. And just got a couple minutes, I'll touch on some things here, and I'm sure we'll come back to it a little bit, but just going to give you this pretty quickly. The only thing created that was said to be in God's image, and that's an amazing distinction, that man is created in God's image. Everything else God spoke into existence. He made it all. It serves its purpose in creation, does what it's supposed to do there. Again, we all hate rats, but rats have a purpose. We all hate flies, but they have a purpose. We all hate, all these things, but they have a purpose. And so that's there. But God created man in his image. He created them both male and female. It says here in this passage that they were blessed by God, that the man and woman were blessed by God, and then he gave them commands to follow. Okay? Creation follows what God says to do because it has no other choice. But man was given the choice to accept the commands and follow the commands of God. But God gave them very specific things they were supposed to do. And so he told them to multiply, to fill the earth. He said to subdue the earth and have dominion over all the animals. That's one of the great distinctions that there is between Christian biblical thinking and what man has done. There are so many people on this earth that think that the world would just be so much better off if we were just wiped off the face of the planet. Man is the one destroying the planet. Man is the one does, and localized, yeah, there's a lot of things man does as a damage to the planet, but man is what God created for giving him glory by the choice we have to give him glory rather than having to give him glory. He allowed us the choice to give him glory, and he said in the middle of all this, he said, you're going to have dominion over everything. You're not to be the environmentalists or whatever, but man really should take care of what has been given to us. I was brought up, we had well water, so you didn't take super long showers. You didn't leave the water running while you brushed your teeth. You can crack that nozzle on and get a little bit of water, turn the faucet on, get that little bit of water, turn it off, and you can brush your teeth while you're doing that. And again, one small little thing, but the environmentalists will take it to the point, well, you got to do that to save the earth. We got to save the earth. But as a Christian, I truly believe that God's given us dominion over what he's given us to be stewards of, and we need to be good stewards of what we have. And we don't kill some of the environmentalists say don't kill any animals. We say don't kill any animals unless you're going to consume it, because it's being a good steward of what's been provided to you. Boy, you think about the cow, how we have as a society put every bit of cow to use. You take the chicken, every bit of the chicken has been put to use for something. I mean, they're finding ways to, they've found ways to consume every bit of it in some product or another. The leather you sit on your seat on the way, if you're fortunate enough to have that, the leather came from the cow, unless you have one of those cars where they do ostrich, which I think is really odd. But either way, we have dominion over all those animals. God put us over that, and we need to be good stewards of what we've been given that way, not just take it flippantly. And so throughout the creation process, God stated after seeing his creation that it was good. Again, sin came along, created a whole lot of problems, but boy, we have been given so much in this earth. What we have here, again, I told you the H2O and the sodium chloride and those being the things we need for life. I mean, God has given us so much in this world. And as he looked over things, he said it was good. And then after finishing with everything, including finishing creating man, he said it is very good. Because he knew there was the potential in us to give him glory out of our own free will. And when we take that and we do something else with it, we slap him in the face with our own rebellion, our own pride, all the things we do that we're not supposed to go do. And so to turn around and say that we are, you know, that we have the liberty to do that if we just want to go do that and just stomp on his grace, and to say we just live however we want to. It's something that it just sickens me when I think about how much I've stepped on his grace. And so God has been so good to us that when he got done with all of creation, he said, it is very good. And you're included in that. It is very good. We are something special in his creation, and we should act like it. And that's what I want to challenge you with here this morning. And thank you for your time for the extra couple minutes. We are dismissed.